Alright, as I mentioned in the previous video, we have our most difficult part to create, which it's even more difficult than it looks like in the drawing, which already you can see it is a complex shape. So we have a curve, and we need to generate something that is wide at one end and then it tapers down to something more narrow on the other end. To further complicate this, if this was a bicycle, which is what we're trying to model, this part would actually, the tire would attach here, and there would actually be two of these. So one would be on the right side of the tire and the other would be on the left side of the tire. So the tire needs to go in between that. So we're going to actually need to curve this out and around an imaginary tire here. Let me go ahead and reveal the bike master so we can get a little bit more of a visual here. So this would need to go out and around this tire on both sides to attach the tire to, or the wheel. So there'll be a hub assembly, all kinds of gears and stuff. So it needs to stick out a little ways. So that's our goal. So let's go ahead and get started. Go ahead and hide that bike master. So the first thing we want to do is create the complex curve that is going to model this curve. But it's also going to curve out in space around that eventual wheel that we have to attach. So I'm going to be making a sketch that has to be on a certain plane, and in order to make that plane I need to reference how far in the Z direction from the top drawing, how far this way out do I need to bring that curve. So I'm going to go ahead and use just a default plane, so I have all my planes turned on here, and I want one that I can draw a vertical line on. So either the front or the right plane would work for this. So I'm going to go ahead and just start a sketch. I'll choose the right plane here. And I'm going to draw some construction geometry, just one line. So I'm going to use the construction geometry, choose the line tool. Oh, first thing I need to do is offset this plane. So right now I can only draw right here because that's where the plane intersects. I want to draw over here. So let me go ahead and undo this sketch. I need to create a plane, a custom plane, that is an offset. No, it's actually a plane point of the right plane. So click the right plane. I'm going to choose a point in my drawing where I want that plane to intersect, and I want it to intersect right here, which will be the center of this that I'm trying to create. So I'm going to click and place the plane right there. So now I can draw my vertical line that goes up in this direction. I'm going to click to accept that new plane. Then I'm going to make a sketch on that plane. Now I can use my sketch geometry and my line tool, and I'm going to click on this point right here and draw vertically, and I'm going to just click to place the line, and now I'm going to dimension the line. So I want this to be a specific length. I'm going to do 2.5 inches. 2.5, enter. Alright, so now we're imagining that this eventual shape, this solid, is going to come out away from the bike frame and then reach this point, this height in this sketch. It's going to go out and around and then connect right there. So the next thing I need to do is draw that. It's going to be a spline that goes from this point to that point and kind of curves out and around. So I need a drawing plane that intersects this point, and this point over here. So if I get my drawing plane to intersect all those points, that would be a flat surface that I could draw that curve. So I need to use the plane tool. So we're done sketching, click the check mark, use the plane tool, and in the options there is an option for 3-point. If I select that option, now I'm going to click on the points that I want to use. So my drawing is going to intersect this point, and this other point over here. Let's do this point right here. As soon as you choose 3 points, it's going to create a drawing plane. So you can see now I can draw on this plane, and I can draw and make a curve from this point out to that point. So I'm going to click the check mark to accept the plane, and then create a new sketch on that new plane. And now I'm going to use, let me go ahead and hide some of these parts that might be in the way here. Let's go ahead and hide all those parts. I'm going to use a spline, and I want to reference this point here as my starting point. And let me go ahead and view normal to the sketch plane. So I want to view this straight on. So I'm going to right click, view normal to sketch plane. So now I can kind of just imagine this curve. Let me turn off some of these other planes. What other plane do I have here? Oh, and then I have the normal. Let's go ahead and just click the P key to hide all the planes. Alright, so I want to just kind of curve out. So I'm going to click a point about right there, then maybe about right there. And imagining the wheel starts somewhere in this area. So it's just going to be pretty much a straight shot from here over to the end point. I think I'll just go ahead and click one more time there just so I have an option, and then click one more time to end my spline, and press escape to accept that. And now I can get, I'm still in the plane tool, so I'm going to escape out of the the spline tool. Press escape to get out of that, and if I want to I can grab any of these points and modify them. So that looks good to me. I'll accept that. So now in my drawing I have a reference of this curve here going out and around the wheel. So, but you can notice as I orbit that it's not curving down in the same way that the original drawing is. So I somehow have to combine this curve and this curve to create the actual path that this part is going to take. So we've done this in the past, but let me just illustrate it again. I'm going to go ahead, and this is something that you don't necessarily need to do. I'm just going to show you conceptually what's happening here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the extrude and choose to extrude a surface. Then I'm going to choose this curve that I have here. I'm going to do it symmetrically, and I'm just going to make it large here. Let's go ahead and do like 5 inches. There we go. Click the check mark. So now I have a surface representing that curve out and around. I'm going to do the same thing with the other curve. So I'm going to go ahead and click the extrude option, surface. I'm going to click on this curve here. I'm going to go ahead and just drag this out. So now what I want to do is I have the two curves, and they actually intersect at a certain point in space all along the points of the curve. And if I could somehow combine these two curves together where they intersect, That would be the exact path that I need to follow. So conceptually, that's what we're going for, is the path where these two curves would intersect if they were extruded out in space. Now I don't need those surfaces, I'm just going to go ahead and hide them now. There's actually a tool that does this for us. Where's that sketch? Go ahead and reveal that sketch. There's a tool, and I always struggle to figure out where it is. I think it's where the plane tool is. So click on the arrow. Yep. What we want is projected curve. If you read the description, it says creates a curve as the intersection of two projected sketches. So basically exactly what we want to do. So when you choose this tool, and it's asking me to choose the first sketch. So I'm going to click on this line here, edge of sketch 8. I'm going to click on the red part so I can select the second sketch. I'm going to choose this curve here. And immediately I get a projected curve, which is the combination of both curves. Very same thing as having the two surfaces intersect. So if I view this angle, it's perfectly curved in line with that curve. If I view from the other angle, from the top, it's perfectly in line with that curve there. Perfect. So click the check mark to accept that. Now we have a new projected curve that we can use. Alright, so we have a path. The next thing we need to do is define the circles. So the larger circle will be on this end, and then the smaller diameter circle will be on this end. So I need to create a sketch on the end point of this curve over here, and then another one on the end point of this curve over here. So let's just get started creating a plane. So I need to go ahead and switch back to the plane tool, and I want to choose a curve point. Actually, before we do this, I'm going to show you first, and then we'll go back and correct some things. So I'll choose a curve point. I'm actually going to reference this point on the curve. So I'm going to click on the point, select the projected curve, and I have a drawing plane. So I'm going to go ahead and click the check mark. This plane is good. Then I'm going to choose a sketch and use that plane that I just created and try to draw a circle here. I'm going to click this point, and the problem is I don't know how large to make this. I want it to be equal to what I see in the sketch, but I can't reference any of that sketch geometry. So let's see if I can use any of that. So if I click on the Use tool, see if I can use that point. What about this point? Let's see what happens. I'm going to go back to the circle tool, click there to start my circle, and see if I can click there and see if that looks correct. That looks pretty good. Alright, so we have some points that we can use. Perfect, that's our first circle. We're going to try the same thing for the end point over here. Try to go ahead and model our circle in space up here. See what happens. So we're done with that sketch. Click the check mark. We need to create a new plane. Same thing on a curve point. So you can click on the point, then select the curve, which is this curve here. And we get our plane. Click the check mark. Now we're going to create a sketch on that plane. And again, we're going to try to reference a starting point, and we can't get a diameter. So I need to use, so I'm going to click on the use tool and see if I can get a point on here. So I want it to match up with this point or this point. Either one will do. Alright, so we can see that they are intersecting right here, not over here. So I'm going to need to draw my circle down here first, which is not a problem. So go ahead and grab the circle tool. Try to reference this center point, so I'm going to need to grab that as well. So go ahead and use the use tool and reference this line here. Now I can use the circle tool. Click on that point and then choose one of the outer points to create the circle. So now I have my circle, but it's not in the right position. So I need to move this circle. So anytime you want to move something, that's called transforming it. So I'm going to go and find the transform tool, which is found here. I don't know why they hid it here, but it's in the linear pattern. Click the transform option. The other thing you can do is I'm going to escape out of all tools and just select what I want to transform. Then right click and then choose transform sketch entities. You get the same thing. So now I have this selected. I want to move this into position. So as I move it, I'm just moving it straight in one direction until it meets that line right there, and it kind of snaps to it. Then I'm going to release. It's showing me kind of a ghosty example of what it would be if I chose to click to place it there. So I'm going to go ahead and click to accept that transformation. So now my two circles are in the correct positions. I have a starting point on one end with a larger circle, and then I have a path to travel to my smaller circle at the other end. So now I'm ready to try the loft. This is exciting. Alright, so I'm going to accept the sketch, and then we're going to go to the loft option. Here we need to select the two profiles that we want to connect together. So I want to select this circle here, and I want it to connect to this circle over here. It should model that immediately. It's stretching from one circle to the other circle along a straight path. But we want to curve it, so we need to define a path that's going to determine the path of this loft. So I'm going to choose path from the options and then select this curve as our guideline. So now if everything's correct, you should have a nice complex curve that is also tapered, and you've successfully modeled that part. Click the check mark to accept it. The last thing we want to do is go ahead and mirror this part on the other side. So I'm going to choose the mirror option, select the entity to mirror, which would be this guy, and then click on where it says mirror plane, so you can select the mirror plane. So any point on this plane would work. Just click there, and then it generates the part on the other side. Click the check to accept that. And now I'm going to turn off some of my planes here just so I can clean up my work area. Alright. Then I'm going to reveal all my parts so I can see what I have so far. Alright, so if I view from the top, everything should be aligned with my original sketch. I'm going to go ahead and turn off. Let's see, we have a sketch here I can turn off. Sketch 7 I can turn off. Turn off. The projected curve is going to stay there. So I'm just making sure that everything that I've modeled so far is lining up with my original sketch. And it is. Look at that, how perfect that is. Alright, the last thing we want to do, actually we probably should have trimmed this first. Let's go ahead and try to split this part. So I have part 7 and part 8. Actually, it's all one part. So let's see what happens if I try to split this part. So I'm going to use the split tool, select this object here, and then click on the entity to split with and choose the pipe. Click the check mark. And let's see what we've got here. The result is part 9 on the inside. Go ahead and hide that and then delete it. Make sure that was all successful. Press the check mark. So there we have it. Good work. Alright, this concludes so far the modeling process on the bike.